Order. Joanne Hayes.
Kia ora, Mr Speaker. I'm pleased to stand in this debate, and what a load of rubbish that was, Mr Speaker. Bribes. Let's talk about bribes, shall we? Let's talk about free student loans, eh? That was one of the biggest bribes of Labour, wasn't it? Oh, yeah. Now let's talk again about New Zealand First bribes in the by-election. Let's talk about that port. How on earth is he going to deliver on a port? He's not going to be able to. 10 bridges, we're going to be able to deliver on 10 bridges. That's what we've put into our plan, and that's what we're going to do, because we are a government that delivers on our promise. We are a government. When we say we are committed to doing stuff, we do it. And that's what I need to put across, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, I've just arrived back from a wonderful conference overseas in Ethiopia. It was the Women in Parliament Global Summit. And I can tell you right now, it opened my eyes up to many things. And I looked around in the places that we were fortunate to visit. And one of the areas that I saw were the treatment of the old people there. And I looked back in New Zealand and I thought how lucky we are to have such a great welfare system looking after our elderly. And it's been known many, many times, and it's been heard all across the world that this country, when it comes to our welfare system, it is one of the best in the world, and especially looking after our elderly. Over 1 million New Zealanders, Mr Speaker, are on super and will receive an increase in their payments. That's a 2.07% increase in their payments. That's 66% of the average wage for couples, married couples, as opposed to the average wage, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, I was when I shocked about the elderly, I noticed old women in Ethiopia who were carrying bundles of eucalypt sticks down the hill. That was what their job was. And when I say I was shocked because once they retired from that, they retired into town, and there was nothing for them. There was absolutely nothing for them. And every time I looked around the places that I went to, some of the more poorer areas in Addis, I was reminded of that great philosopher, Fred Dagg, who said, you know, we don't know how lucky we are because we don't know how lucky we are. He was a great philosopher. Then I turn and I look towards something that is close to my heart, the veterans. Then I look to the veterans' payment, Mr Speaker, and I see, you know, $60 million. It's a $60 million package for veterans to support the new Veteran Support Act, which the Honourable Michael Woodhouse is responsible for. And that came into force on the 7th of December in 2014. And that is great because I have two grandfathers who fought in the Māori Battalion and the Pioneer Battalion in World War I. And I'm sure that as they lay there listening to their mokopuna standing in this House talking about that, supporting the veterans package and all the other things that we do within the veteran sector, they would be very proud of me as they sit on my shoulders and look across the House. Mr Speaker, the government's also providing $300,000 in grants to the RSA, and all of this has all come through on the 1st of April for increase, and we've also increased veterans' travel mileage rate by 20%, and that's really important because a lot of veterans like to catch up with each other and, you know, to actually travel from one place to the other, and some of them have long distances to travel. I mean, I'm based out of Christchurch East, and they have a very strong, especially the Māori veterans group, which they don't need to travel that far, but when I first arrived in Christchurch East, there was a tangi on, and the tangi was in the North Island, and so they all gathered together at Ngā Haue Whāmarae and worked out how they were going to travel north. So with this increase in travel payments, that will help other veterans throughout New Zealand to travel to either tangi or to hui with each other. From superannuation in the Veterans Bill, I moved to employment because employment in the place I went to in Addis Ababa, there was groups of women who had been funded by their government to set up their own businesses within the markets. And those businesses would start on the smell of an oily rag and they would grow into big business in Addis. Some of these were actually wood-carrying women that carried that wood from the top of Mount Tuto all the way down into Addis Township. And that wood, again, was used for housing, it was used for fences, and also for burning. One of the things I also was quite amazed at was the innovation of that country. You know, steel was a little bit of at a premium for them, especially when it came to building the big concrete buildings that they are putting together. It is a city that is it is developing as we go, and I see the finger going like that. But one of the things I just want to say, Mr. Speaker, I'm really pleased to speak on this.
Members'
Thank you.
time has expired. Carmel Sepuloni.
Mr. Speaker,